comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money,
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar.
Hello and welcome to Good Robottal with me, your Rebel Wars fanatic Harry.
And me, your BattleBots expert Charlie.
And today, you lucky people, you're getting 2 Robot Wars reviews for the price of 1.
But wait, there's more!
The king isn't dead.
We have our trailers to find out our new king of the bots.
A new bot is here to vanquish all challengers.
And we find a swarm of information from the newest Reddit AMA.
So, let's get right into it.
Alright, so our first bit of news is one that's quite heartwarming. King Buxton has been accepted to 2018 Robo Games, and this coincides with the 20th anniversary of the robot. And for this, Simon Harrison is actually building a brand new King Buxton, which, from all accounts, it sounds like it's going to be quite an interesting design. It's going to have interchangeable weapons and a whole lot of new little gadgets and doodads that's going to make it a lot different than other King Buxtons, but still keeping that sort of King Bee flair that we all know and love.
And this is something I think we all really love about these machines, which are basically being upgraded, the new modular designs, robots which have existed for a long time and have kind of just developed and become something modern as the time's gone on. So, I mean, we've got with Behemoth, we've gone from a scoop to a flipper. We've had Terahertz, which has got better armour and a better axe now. And now we've got King Buxton, which is no longer just a box on wheels, but we're now going to be seeing more stuff being added. And whilst King Bee Remix was great to see in Series 8, it was quite dated by design, and it showed in the fact that it didn't get any wins. It still was great to see, but this could be what fixes Buxton and gets it up there as a robot which is still relevant and can still win.
And I just had a great thought. Imagine King Buxton fighting a machine like Super Snake.
I would love to see that. If that ever happened, I would probably watch that video every day, because King Bee, brilliantly driven. Sewer Snake, amazing to watch. That would be such a good fight.
It would be. And speaking of videos that we're going to watch every day, King of the Bots has unleashed their first set of trailers. This is through their, what I can only describe as the Chinese equivalent to YouTube. The videos, I'm not quite sure, work on mobile, but on desktop they do, in case you want to watch them if you're curious. They show off some Chinese robots, and they also show off some foreign machines, including the US machine Spin Doctor, the Team Expulsion machine Suspension, and the new team from PP3D Robotics Crossfire. And it's quite a good few set of videos, and there's also a more general trailer just showing off various clips of fights, heavily featuring the Team Robo Challenge machine Spectre. But yeah, these are some very good little pieces of media to get your appetite wet for King of the Bots. Especially the Crossfire video. Holy crap, that thing is dangerous. And it has a flamethrower. We didn't know this until now. Crossfire has a flamethrower because it's Gary Cairns. Why not?
I love flamethrowers on robots. I know it's silly and I know they don't really do too much, but they just add to the spectacle so much. And it's something that BattleBots has, which Robot Wars doesn't, which I really do wish that we could get to see finally in Robot Wars, because it just makes robots just have so much more going to them. Stinger and Complete Control looked so much cooler when they had the flame firing out of them. And Crossfire is just sounding more and more awesome the more we're seeing these little bits of it. It looked great in its video, and I don't know what the music was that they had, but man, that was great. What a great piece of editing. The whole thing came together so well, and by the end of it I was just like, holy crap, I need to see this show. This looks so damn good. And I also quite like the fact that in all of these trailers, we're actually seeing a lot of international robots being represented. We've seen, Tanche, we've seen Spectre, I think Vulcan, we've seen Spin Doctor, Crossfire, Suspension. They seem to be really focusing on the international bots as opposed to the Chinese ones. But we have got to see a little bit of Saber, which is a robot I really want to see fight, because Saber is a beautiful machine. Oh man, we need to see King of the Bots so badly.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the fact that they're really honing in on this sort of international appeal gives me some hope that we'll see some form of an international release, at least in some capacity. I mean, hopefully, I would love at best to get like just the full series or something like that, even if, you can buy it from a Chinese publisher, or just anything where we can get our hands on the full series, because that would be phenomenal. But yeah, King of the Boss is looking great. There's some great Chinese robots out there, really showing that their combat scene even though it's still relatively in its infancy, is growing quite fast. And there's even talks for a season 2 already, with even expansions, so this is nothing but a good thing right now.
Absolutely, and with ABC really screwing over BattleBots at the moment, and we're not sure if we're going to even get a season 3, it's good to see another Robot Combat show come out to, be there alongside Robot Wars to keep Robot Combat going, and it does look a little bit like BattleBots, but it's still really awesome to see. I'm so happy that we've got more shows like this coming about. And personally, I think if we're seeing these trailers being uploaded to this Chinese YouTube website, then I think we could probably see the King of the Bots episodes being released on there as well.
Exactly. I think we'll be seeing some sort of international release or something like that, but King of the Bots is shaping up to be this fantastic competition. And moving on to our next point, our last 2 news bits are a little bit smaller, but still give us quite a good bit of information. The next point is about a new UK heavyweight. This is from the mind of Jack Tweedy, who you may know has joined Team Apex this past season for Season 10, and also owns the previous Tanto, also known as Nebula, which he's now applied to his team name, Team Nebula. This is Vanquish. It's sort of a 4-wheel wedge design, kind of like Tornado in Series 6, but modernized. And it also has a Sewer Snake style lifter to it as well. So it kind of takes the best elements of those 2 robots and combines it into this very clean, simple, but phenomenal looking machine.
Absolutely. I mean, it looks gorgeous. Jack has done a great job with the aesthetics for this robot. I mean, wow. I love the look of it. I really hope we get to see it on Robot Wars someday. And if not, I'm looking forward to seeing it at the live events. I know that you are quite partial to a Sewer Snake flipper, and so am I. They are brilliant, and I really hope that Robot Wars does eventually start using them. Lucifer's got a great one of them, and hell, I'd love to see Sewer Snake on Robot Wars, but who knows if that would ever happen. But man, this is looking great. I really like the look of Vanquish. Jack's done such a good job here, and yeah, I love seeing these new robots. We've had 2 Head of Death Flamingo, we've had Lunatic, and of course Deadlock. There's all these new machines that are coming about, and I'm just really excited at the moment because hopefully we'll see these in Robot Wars and they'll really shake up the competition a little bit.
Yeah, I'm definitely loving this evolution of UK robots where we're seeing these different sort of style of robots coming out now and getting their just feet wet into the UK live circuit, and they're even starting to slowly introduce spinners in, so yeah, it's becoming a really good overall well-integrated system, and yeah, Vanquish, another great, fantastic, welcome new entry to the UK live circuit. But yeah, so our final news point is that as of recording this, the newest Reddit AMA was with Ian Watts from the Team of the Swarm, and of course, Ian Watts, one of the most seasoned roboteers of all time, going all the way back to 1999 with Big Brother, and with continued success with Bigger Brother. And now, the last few years, he seemed to be on this sort of clusterbot kick, where he's making these very unique, very crazy clusterbots with the Swarm. As of right now, being the newest one to reach air. He's got one for King of the Bots that hasn't aired yet. But yeah, we got some great little tidbits of information from this AMA.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Ian Watts is an absolute legend, and it was great to see him do an AMA. I really love this part about Reddit, that we can get roboteers, those who are new and old, to come on there and we can talk to them, we can ask them questions, we can learn a little bit about them. And one of the big talking points that came out of the Ian Watts AMA is that we find out that Joe and Ellie are still doing well. Joe is, I think, a computer engineer at this point, and Ellie has just graduated from uni, and my god, that makes me feel just so old because I still watch her in these Robot Wars episodes from God knows how long ago now, and in my mind they're still those little kids, but no, they're older than us now, and that's just mad to me. But hopefully Ian has said that he'd like to get Joe and Ellie back on the team because obviously the fans would really want it. I mean, the nostalgia there, people will go crazy for stuff like that. I know people have been really impressed with Sam, and Sam is definitely the future of that team, but to see Joe and Ellie again, even if it's just one more time, that'd be great. I'd love that very much.
Oh yeah, I would too. I would certainly love to see just them at least make one final hurrah. I know that the Orte probably won't get accepted again, much to my dismay and yours as well, because it's a great robot. But I don't know. Hopefully we'll get to see at least them return in some capacity, at least for one final round. Like, even if it's just, them just more as in like a supporting role than anything, but just like this final, like this little nod to the old school fans.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would really like to see, obviously, Ellie and Joe. I'd love to see Orte again, because I think Orte was such a cool looking flipper. And it's very different to the flippers that you do see on the live circuit. It's not generic wedge number 53. It's got quite a powerful flipper. It reminds me a lot of actually Bronco's sort of flipper, that sort of kick to it rather than the sort of big flapping door mechanism. And that was awesome. I really like the look of the live footage I've seen of Orte, and it's a shame that we're not going to see it now, but the Swarm was still great. And one other thing about the Swarm before we move on to the big double episode is that Ian also revealed the original name of the flipper bot in the Swarm, Rubber Duck. And understandably, Robot Wars were not keen on the name of it, because he revealed the name to be none other than Rubber Ducker.
When I first heard this, my mind went immediately to Samuel L. Jackson quotes, like, say what again? Say what? I dare ya, I double dare ya, Rubber Ducker. Or, from his 2007 acclaimed movie, I have had it with these rubber ducking snakes on this rubber ducking plane.
Just beautiful. This is what this podcast is all about, is just being absolute idiots and also talking about Robot Wars. I love it. This is the best thing ever.
Subscribe on iTunes. But yeah, now moving on to... We don't even have an iTunes. This is on YouTube. But yeah, moving on to the big meaty part of this podcast. It is the double episode review because, well, we're both students in university. Sometimes our schedules just make things a little bit harder on us. So we weren't really able to get into an episode 2 review, at least during the week of it. And you were actually at WWE as well, so that really put a whole stamp on your week that past week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the event was amazing. Probably one of the best nights of my life. But unfortunately, what it did mean was that when I got back, I had a few problems with the trains getting back home. And we were planning on doing the recording of the Heat B podcast that night. And I got home at about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was just like, hell no, am I doing this podcast now? And we've just decided that it's probably best to just kind of splice Heat B and Heat C together. We don't have a huge amount to say about Heat B anyway, because as we predicted, it was quite a by the numbers episode. And obviously, because there's no new machines, and they've all got this quite high caliber to them, there really isn't too much to talk about, because obviously they all did a good job. But we're still going to be reviewing both episodes, so without further ado, let's get straight into it.
Right. So opening up for Heat B, we're just going to dive sort of right into the episode itself. And actually, there's something I kind of noticed. Do they do the opening intro bit anymore?
They do it, but it seems to be different every time. I'm not quite sure, because they kind of... It's not right at the start anymore, because I noticed it in Heat C. I was waiting for that to appear, but it kind of leads into it a little bit, and then you get Dara and Angela, and then it goes off into the music, and then you get the little bit to it. And I actually prefer that, because it kind of breaks it up nicely. It's something which I actually really like about Robot Wars at the moment, is that the editing seems to have changed slightly. For Series 10, they kind of mix it all up a little bit, so they've got these interview bits where, you've got the Roboteer sitting there, and there's just the camera, and they're just talking about their robot, or about how they came up with the ideas for it, or the team, or stuff like that. And they kind of feed that into the episode here and there where it fits. And instead of having these really monotonous sections where you have, after the head-to-heads, when they had the thing of like the 4 robots which made it to the head-to-heads, they had those little 1-minute clips where it kind of went into the robot a little bit. But now they've kind of broken that up, so you get little bits here and there, and it actually works a lot better. The flow of the episode is just so much better now.
Oh yeah, it definitely helps it move along a lot smoother, not as chunky. Now, something that is chunky is the tires of our first robot. That is Gabriel. Not at least in width, but in height. Oh yes. Gabriel 2 now aptly named, is the return of the Series 8 competitor Gabriel from Team Sane, who also had Cherub last season. And this is the first robot that actually has, well, other than Sky from the Swarm, really gone forward with the entanglement idea from this rule that's been introduced for this series. And yeah, it actually looks quite a very well implementation of the entanglement device.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm not a massive fan of Team Saint robots. I'm not particularly keen on Gabriel, but I have to say one thing that Gabriel has going for it is its build. Just everything about it. We know about the wheels. We know about how the fact that it just does not die. But this whole thing with, like, I think it's 5 different mace weapons that they can attach onto the robot. Again, we're going modular. We're going interchangeable weapons, which is something that we're seeing so much more now. And Gabriel, just every single one of them works. I wish we got to see them a little bit more, but unfortunately that's what Gabriel gets going against Spinners, is that they had to use the entanglement device one. But as far as entanglement devices go, that was very successful. I thought it was great, and unfortunately it doesn't work, but it's more because it just ends up on the wrong side of the robot it's up against later on in the heat. But yeah, a really good job. Gabriel too looks pretty damn nice.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and get through the next one relatively quickly. It is the Series 9 champion Carbide. They've returned much relatively with the same design, but I mean, the old adage goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and let's face it, nothing broke on Carbide last season, really. I mean, the thing was still in pretty good shape afterwards. I mean, the only time it ever died was when it was wedged between 2 house robots, but as far as that goes, yeah, it came out relatively clean. So just showing how dangerous and deadly this thing is. I mean, they call it the most feared robot in the UK for good reason, because this thing is a monster.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Carbide is absolutely the most feared machine in the UK right now. I mean, look at that spinner. Look at the custom motors they put on that thing. It's a scary, scary motherfucker. And I think the only 2 things that have really changed about Carbide in Series 10 is that they've made the spinner and the custom motors even better. And now Sam Smith has become the team captain of Team Carbide, which is something I'm up for because we don't get to hear Sam talk very much. And he's been with Robot Wars since Tiberius in Series 4, so it's great to see him finally actually have a lot of camera time.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, Sam Smith, he's got such a great history with Robot Wars. Tiberius was such an underrated machine, in my opinion. It was the second best crusher as far as Robot Wars is concerned, right behind, well, Razor, but still, I mean, this is a very experienced robots here, as is Dave Molds. They're both very phenomenal builders, so to see them both getting some good amount of airtime this episode is a really good little added moment. And speaking of good things, we have the return of another very underrated machine in my eyes, Big Nipper. And this year, ooh, they went big. They have a single-tooth disc. Basically, they did a lot what Supernova did in Series 9, where instead of having a disc with teeth on it, is a single-tooth disc. And unlike one like for Aftershock, where it has sort of like just spaces cut out to save weight, this thing is a single chunk of metal. This thing is scary, and it proved in this episode it is scary.
Oh yeah, and we'll be getting into that at some point, but it's just great to see Big Nipper back. I mean, I thought that they weren't going to be appearing again. I thought they were going to be a one and done, much like a lot of the other robots that we saw in Series 8, like Thermidor and Canopler, which, let's be honest, we're not seeing again. But here, it's great to see Big Nipper back. They're such a good team, they've got such a good robot, and wow, they proved it in this heat.
Oh yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, they didn't get off to a good start in this opening melee. Basically, they get a thwack from Gabriel that jams up one of their wheels, and I think they stop to preserve the robot because, well, they know that if they try to continue on, Carbide would probably notice that and then say, oh, hi, let me fuck your day up. But no, unfortunately, Big Nipper goes out relatively early. Gabriel doesn't. Gabriel does not die. It goes to a judge's decision with Carbide. Even though Carbide just whacks the wheels over and over and over again, Gabriel just won't die. And in fact, it almost KOs Carbide. At some point, I think it caused damage to one of the tires, and Carbide ends up getting breached on it, and I bet you that Sam and Dave were having sort of like PTSD sort of flashbacks to Season 2 of BattleBots when they lost a bombshell in the same way by getting their tires messed up and getting breached. And it almost happened here. But in the end, Gabriel ends up losing a judge's decision to Carbide, but Sam and Dave both agree that it was a very good fight, and they said it was, I think, the best fight they ever gave Carbide, and Gabriel got a standing ovation from fellow Roboteers, including a fun little drinking game here. One of our favorite personalities on the community and YouTube community, Stephen McCullough, doing a magnificent bow to Gabriel after his fight.
Yeah, I mean, what a fight it was, though. It was just brilliant. I mean, I think everyone can agree in the community that it was one of the best fights we've seen in Robot Wars. And obviously, it's all down to opinion of what is a brilliant fight and what is not. I have many fights which I could consider brilliant, but another person may not think the same. But I think this is a sort of unanimous agreement that this fight was great and probably one of Carbide's best. And it just showed. I mean, Gabriel were tough as hell, and like I said, I'm not a fan so much of Gabriel. I'm not a big Thwackbot guy anyway. I was never really a fan of Stinger, but wow, Gabriel it's just so well built because it just goes all over the place and you can't kill it. You can't really do very much to it. I mean, yeah, it means that it could probably lose out a little bit on control when it goes to judges' decisions because it does kind of just go all over the place, but hell, surviving against Carbide, that's something that even Apollo can't do, so that's pretty damn impressive. This was a great fight, and it all shows in the fact that you have that lovely bit of everyone applauding as the Team Gabriel go down the walkway, including, of course, Stephen McCullough. I fangirled at that moment.
I did too. I'm waiting for if he has like even a little bit of a speaking role in the episode, like if him and Anthony speak in the episode 5 coming up, but until then, we still have this to go through. Our next melee is all of returning teams from Series 9, and there's not really much to say because most of these robots kind of retain their looks from last series, sans some modifications. They are Crackers and Smash, Eruption, and Aftershock, and my word, you talk about a stacked melee, this is definitely one of them. I mean, the one team I gotta feel bad for here is Crackers and Smash because I see so much potential in this robot as a cluster bot. I see so much. And they keep ending up in these heats of death. Like, I don't know. It's unfortunate because, especially in this episode and in the episode with Carbide, just by the virtue of going up against these very, best of the UK, where really even the best heavyweights struggle to where, a full-blown heavyweight can, and then you have these two little robots that have to try and strategize, then, yeah, it really can hinder them a bit, but still, I'm very happy to see them back, and I really hope we get to see them in Series 11. And then Eruption and Aftershock, not really much to be said. They're two of the best heavyweights in the UK right now, even in the world. Eruption, of course, probably one of the best flippers. Aftershock, once again, returning with that absolutely deadly disc, and now with the new addition of a floating Will Thomas head.
Oh man, I always praise the editing, but what drugs were they on when they did that weird Bohemian Rhapsody styled bit? I would just looked at it and I was just like, what? What is this? What are they doing? Honestly, I just praised you guys for the editing, and now you do this. Oh.
Mamma mia, mamma mia.
Mamma mia, let me go.
Oh my god. The memes about that are fantastic. And so good, so good. But yeah, a very stacked opening melee here. This one, I would argue, is not as good as the last one, but it was still a very good display. It wasn't a good display for the arena because Aftershock ends up, doing what it's done several times and ends up actually breaking the arena, this time destroying the floor flipper. In fact, something actually we didn't really know, but Dara mentioned how there's still that mark in the arena from Series 9 where Aftershock basically took out a chunk near the Robot Wars logo, and then it tears up the flipper, and then once all that madness is going on, this gives Eruption time to come in and flip out Aftershock. It ends up actually bouncing on the sidewall, tearing out a chunk out of that, because Aftershock has sort of a magnet to the arena, and then it takes out Crackers and Smash, so This melee was a really just a phenomenal, another great display by Eruption of its power and control.
Absolutely. I mean, this was a really fun heat. I mean, I know it had a little bit of tension, unfortunately, because we had the false finish that happened where the Crackers and Smash team thought that because the flipper got torn up, that the fight had ended, and then you had Ian telling Will to power down, and then this allowed Eruption, because Michael Oates wasn't paying attention to it. He used that as an opportunity to get under Aftershock and flip them out. And you could feel the tension a little bit. There was this little section where they were shouting at each other. But if you look past that and you just look at the fight for what it was, well, Eruption looked brilliant coming out of Series 9 and into Series 10, and they're still just as good at the flipping. We're talking about George Francis levels here. Like, this guy, Michael Oates, he is so damn good at what he does with that flipper bar. And Aftershock and Crackers and Smash don't really get too much time, but it's still just great to see them. This was still a good fight. I kind of liked having Eruption and Aftershock in the same melee. It was interesting. But, I mean, I don't know how I feel about having all the grand finalists in one heat. But so far, both melees, pretty damn good. I mean, I can't complain about this.
Yeah, two very, very strong melees to start us off. And something actually you noted at the end of this one, they actually referenced the live circuit. There's a photo of Team Shock, Team Eruption, and Team Big Nipper, I believe, at a live event. So, hey, nice little touch there.
Yeah, and what makes it even more interesting is the fact that all three of these teams are in this heat. I mean, if you go through all of the competitors in this heat, they've all got varying levels of success. Carbide are obviously our current UK champions, and they are also in the Hall of Fame, which is certainly a big thing indeed. You've got Eruption, who are runners-up and multiple time winners of all sorts of events on the live circuit. You've got Team Shock, who have been in the grand final twice, plus Manta is the current Robot Wars live champion. Then we've got Gabriel, who were the 2016 FRA heavyweight champion, and Big Nipper, which was a previous FRA champion. I'm not quite sure what year that was. And Crackers and Smash, I believe, have done quite a few featherweights among them, and they have received a few wins at some point. I'm not quite sure. They are kind of, unfortunately, the one which doesn't really fit in with everything. And it's a shame because, like you said, Crackers and Smash, they're probably the best cluster bot that we've actually seen in Robot Wars. I mean, you could say what you like about Gemini, but Gemini had a big design for it and it lost to Napalm. So, Crackers and Smash are definitely better than that, in my opinion.
Yeah, they do a little bit more than a SodaStream, which, to be fair at the time, was probably good for the flippers. But yeah, innovation has improved over the years, and Crackers and Smash is a good example of it. But yeah, it just really shows like just sort of like the amount of history and lineage in these teams. And now we make more history as we continue on into the redemption round. Our first one is Aftershock versus Gabriel. And now, we were going on earlier about how Gabriel was just very hard to kill. But unfortunately here, it loses to Aftershock. It does use its entanglement device, and it actually ends up wrapping around the motor, the mechanism around the disc of Aftershock. It doesn't necessarily kill it. It still causes a good amount of damage, but it doesn't kill it. But unfortunately, I think it's due to the fact that Aftershock with its disc was high enough to get onto the body of Gabriel. Gabriel ends up getting KO'd, and for the first time actually in Robot Wars history, Team Saint does not make a Heat final, which is kind of tragic for this series because this was probably their best showing in my opinion. They really showed they were true contenders. And then of course for final insult to injury, Sir Kill-A-Lot ends up giving them a horrible cutting off of the weapon, which makes every male, including you and me, both just wince in pain.
It was certainly one of those moments where I was just like, oh god. And every time I watch it back, it just hurts as much. It did make me laugh though. It's, I think, something which, I mean, Kill-A-Lot has done that before. So it was a nice little nod back, definitely, when he used to cut off axes. And I think he cut off, I think it was Bumblebot, and it cut off that useless, I don't know, axe. I don't know what it was. Bumblebot was a weird robot. But let's not talk about Bumblebot, let's talk about actually good robots, like Gabriel and Aftershock. And here, Gabriel, bless them, they were honestly on top form after that Carbide fight, and unfortunately, Aftershock was probably the worst robot that they could face, because that big vertical disc is one of the only things which can reach the important area of Gabriel. I mean, yeah, an axe could do it as well, but we haven't actually got to see that yet. But this is the first vertical spinner that's faced Gabriel, and wow, it's really weird to see Gabriel actually die, because we've just recognised it always as being as a sort of invincible thing. I mean, it came out of the Carbide fight still moving, so to then see it against Aftershock die just like that, real shame, definitely, especially as you said, it's their best performance in the reboot, and unfortunately they don't make the Heat final. But do you know what? Considering the calibre of robots they faced there, I'd say that they did a damn good job, and they should be very proud of themselves.
Oh yeah, full constellation to Gabriel. Absolutely spectacular job. And now we move on to our next redemption round, which, unfortunately, this ties into what I was saying about Crackers and Smash earlier. Yeah, this Heat was just not kind to them, and this one especially showed it. Now, going into this, after you saw what Big Nipper did, I feel like you may be presumed to think, oh, okay, well, they're not going to do much. And then the hit happened. Probably one of the biggest hits, probably would have gone down as one of the biggest hits of the entire series, were it not for a moment in our upcoming Heat C review. Yeah, basically it ends up taking Smash, ends up throwing Smash into the air using its disc, breaks a light, and comes down. And this is the moment that really showed that Heat B stood for... Let me get my mode here. B stood for, by God is my witness, that bot is broken in half.
God damn it. Do you know, I am the one who makes the WWE references, and you just made a brilliant JR reference. So, a round of applause for you, sir. That was very good. Very good indeed.
I may not be a big fan, but I am not completely ignorant on WWE. Jim Ross's legendness goes beyond the entire fandom, but yeah, speaking of legendary, Big Nipper, this is probably their best moment as far as Robot War is concerned. Unfortunately for Crackers and Smash, it ends up with this happening and then Sir Kill-A-Lot sitting on Crackers. So, yeah, just... It was a great showing for Big Nipper, unfortunately for Crackers and Smash, but yeah, this is the moment that, when I said that Big Nipper was scary, this proved it. I mean, we saw in the last episode with Apollo, they flew, what was the name of that?
It was a Rubber Duck, or Rubber Ducker.
Yeah, Rubber Ducker. Yeah, they flipped them out of the arena. And while that one was impressive, you gotta realize, Smash weighs more because this is 2 cluster bots, not 4. So that shows the true potency of Big Nipper's disc. It just... Because my thing is, it wasn't much a long flip as it is height. Like, really, the old JP quote, that's come down with snow on it, really applied here. It came down with snow and bits of glass.
And the light fitting as well, because let's not forget that it hit a light and just completely wrecked it. I mean, this was such a good moment. I mean, talk about the highest out of the arena being done by a spinner. That's honestly just so crazy, but it's feasible. Ever since we saw Exterminator get that OOTA on Tsunami, and I think also Killer Carrot, it's always been possible that a spinner could get an OOTA, and here we see Big Nipper absolutely proving that. And wow, what a moment, one we're never gonna forget. And then to have Crackers, poor old Crackers, getting crushed by Sir Kill-A-Lot's bottom. I mean, certainly a memorable fight, slightly humiliating maybe for Crackers and Smash, but they enjoyed it, and it was a really fun match. We may have seen the end of Crackers and Smash, but they both did a good job. It was just good to see.
Oh yeah. And now we transition onward into our semis. Our first fight is Carbide versus Aftershock, and the thing is, Aftershock had fitted a new bar, a sort of asymmetrical bar, made for specifically fighting Carbide. And for the start, it looks like it works, but unfortunately, this played off just like it did in the grand final. where Carbide gets a few good side swipes, and that's it for Aftershock. And this is kind of an omen for the end of the episode. We'll get into that later, but yeah, it really is unfortunate because Aftershock looked like it had the advantage, and then Carbide came in and basically did what it did. I mean, this is no fault of any of the teams itself. It's more the fault of just the overall format, because you have the grand finals who made the past the first round return because Ironside 3 didn't enter this series. So yeah, the odds of repeat fights were likely, and unfortunately, as this episode showed, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is unfortunately where we start seeing the problem of putting 3 of the grand finalists in the same heat, is that you're gonna get repeat fights, and Carbide is a monster, and if it beat your robot before, it will beat it again, and this is literally the same fight we see in Series 9 Grand Final, and unfortunately we have a fight later on which is absolutely identical as well, and that's just a real shame. I mean, this is probably the down point of the episode, and the episode doesn't really, in my opinion, doesn't really pick up from here, because I suddenly realised, actually, this is kind of starting to become a bit predictable. But that said, the 10-bot Rumble fight, that was pretty damn cool.
Yeah, the next 2 fights are still pretty solid. Our next fight is Eruption v Big Nipper, and it's a very good driving match, in my opinion. Unfortunately, Big Nipper just could not get any reach on Eruption, but it does have some of Jonathan Pierce's best commentary by birthing the absolute legend that is Shunty McShuntface.
I love JP's commentary sometimes. He can just hit it out the park sometimes. The one that I remember from the episode is that we kept on seeing Shunt and Kill a lot all the time. Like, there were no other house robots. I think we saw Matilda like once, but Dead Metal didn't even appear in this episode. And he kept on making reference to Shunt and Kill a lot coming back, saying about how they should be paid for overtime. And it's like, oh my god, it's Shunt and Kill a lot again. The poor bots. And you just think, this is great. This is just that extra dimension of commentary that I really enjoy. And it's something that JP is so good at. His sort of, the way he treats the house robots. I mean, okay, the Matilda one is borderline creepy, but it's just great to see how he has that personality with them.
When is he not creepy with Matilda, though? Like, let's be real.
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting lines that come up in Heat C, which we will be getting to shortly. But I just want to say about this Big Nipper and Eruption fight is, I'm going to basically say what you said, that the driving match was great. I mean, this was really, really good. There was loads of avoiding each other. Big Nipper did a really good job of basically avoiding getting flipped out of the arena, which I kept on anticipating. And Eruption just didn't get around to doing it because Big Nipper just kept on getting out the way. They didn't really get much in the way of aggression or damage, but it was a really good fight just seeing these two machines which could just outdrive each other, just here all over the arena. And it may not be good for TV, but it's still something you've got to really appreciate. It's much like that moment in the Sumo in Series 4, where you have Exterminator and Behemoth both literally ramming into Shunt, and just the screeching of tyres as they just kind of just push into each other to try and outpush the other. And as JP says in the commentary then, this may look boring to you, but this is actually really impressive.
Sumo Basho! But yeah, no, this is a very good driving fight. I feel like probably the best comparison I could think of is that this is very akin to what I think we'd see on the live circuit, where it's a very good sort of like cat and mouse type fight. But Eruption is able to score a few flips in, and that is enough to sway the judges in their favor. So our final is Eruption versus Carbide. But until then, we have what is, in my opinion, the best fight of the entire episode. Now, you have mentioned, like, at least to me, outside of podcasts a couple times, how you're not really big on spinner versus spinner fights, but I think even you'll agree that this fight is a very good exception to that rule.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, when I say I'm not a big fan of spinner versus spinner fights, it's very specifically Robot Wars spinner fights. Because BattleBots has done some great spinner fights, but
oh yeah,
Robot Wars isn't quite the same. It just, for some reason, isn't on that same sort of level. Maybe it is because America, obviously, they have more spinner bots that are fantastic, but the UK has been very much focused on flippers, especially because spinners were banned on the live circuit. So
Thanks, Scorpion.
yeah, Scorpion never does anything right. But yeah, it's just Robot Wars spinner fights. We saw it in Heat D of Series 9. It just was very boring, and really, Supernova was a glass cannon. Pulsar just wasn't quite there yet, and Ironside 3 was the best robot, but once it got to the grand final, it really didn't do as well as it was doing in that heat, and I just didn't really care for it. But here, Aftershock and Big Nipper, I agree with you. I think this is one of the best fights of the heat because it shows just how much these bots can take. They don't just die in seconds. They come together, smash, you get that big collision which we all love, and then instead of them both just dying and both weapons stop working, they get back up again and they do it again.
Yeah, and in this fight, you can kind of tell that Big Nipper has the advantage. It's lower, the disc is lower, and it can get into Bite Aftershock, and this is what really helps its case here. And in fact, it actually ends up KOing Aftershock. It blows out the disc, it ends up like disabling it, and then puts Aftershock on its sort of back to where it can't self-ride. And yeah, so for the first time in the entire reboot, like we said with Gabriel earlier, except maybe even more extreme now, Team Shock are not in the grand final. They're not even in the 10-bot. This is where their journey ends. Well, at least as far as their full involvement. We'll get into that in Heat C. But as far as we're Aftershock, yeah, unfortunately this is the end of the road, but man, this is really what I mean when I say that Big Nipper really proved itself this episode. It went on from being a good robot, but one that I feel like it may get a bit lost in the fold, to this standout machine, one that is one to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I don't know about Aftershock. I think that, personally, I'm more of a fan of Shockwave anyway, because I do like a good pusher bot, and I don't think we really see them very much in Robot Wars. I love control bots. I love bots which just use sheer power, which is why I very much love one of the robots in the next heat. But this just, I don't know, Aftershock, it's a cool idea. It's a very powerful spinner, but it clearly has some problems, and Will needs to definitely iron these problems out, because Aftershock could do a lot better than it does, but even though it did great in its heat last series, once they came to the grand final, I mean, it really died. I mean, we saw zombie Aftershock, and yeah, maybe that's because it faced Carbide first, but still, Aftershock, I don't know, there seems to be something wrong with it. I think it's the fact it doesn't have a Shremek or anything, so if it ends up on its back with the disc not working, it's curtains, and that needs fixing. It's a good robot with a flawed design, and I think that once you sort that out, Aftershock could potentially be champions at one point.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think we'll definitely see more of that come along in future series, but yeah, for right now, this is Big Nipper's moment. They really shined here, and we have a fantastic fight. Unfortunately, our Heat final does not measure up to that. Like we said, it was Carbide versus Eruption, and going back to what I said about the Aftershock versus Carbide fight, when I said it was an Omen, yeah, this is the same thing here. Basically, Eruption can't even get much of a flip on Carbide. Carbide ends up hitting one of the side pods and dismantling one of the wheels, and in a very quick fashion, that's it for Eruption, and Carbide ends up winning the heat. I mean, consolation to them. I mean, they deserve the win, but it's really just a sign of the fact like this is not a good strategy. Because really, I mean, both of Carbide's heats have been just these sort of manipulated things to sort of get revenge, instead of showing Carbide going up against like these fresh competitors. I mean, let's be 100% real here. The best fight that Carbide had this entire heat was hands down against Gabriel, a robot that's never faced before. And I wish that we got to see more of that, where Carbide got to face these new competitors, these new machines, instead of, just going up against the ones that it did the previous series.
Yeah, I mean, there are constant parallels to this and the Series 9 Grand Final, and that is not a good idea. This is why seeding existed, and even though seeding could be bullshit sometimes, I mean, we saw it with Razor getting a lot of very kind treatment, and also Steg too did not get as high as it should have been in the seedings for Series 4, and then you have countless ones like Mousetrap and Splinter as well. But, man, seeding needs to happen. They could have comfortably done the seeding as just have it, with Ironside 3 not coming back, you could have easily had it as Carbide as Seed 1, then Eruption, Aftershock, Concussion, and Apollo. And that would have worked perfectly. You split out all of those, and then you just have the other 5 robots, you kind of decide where they all go. But unfortunately, when you try and manipulate it so that certain robots can meet each other at some point, and so you can get this rematch and that rematch, people don't care so much, because one of the cool things is when rematches happen by accident, just because of the way that the card all works out. You get these moments, and it builds new moments. No one wants to see Carbide versus Apollo again, and I don't want to see Carbide versus Eruption again, unless Eruption can get the win, of course, because then there is something to it. But if we're seeing the same fight again, I really don't see the point of why they're doing this, because I get that they wanted Carbide to have a difficult heat so that it would be like, could Carbide make it into the grand final? But this just isn't the way of doing it, because of this, we don't get to see Aftershock and Eruption in the grand final. And, Crackers and Smash, Gabriel and Big Nipper are also brilliant machines as well. And none of them deserve this sort of treatment. And it's a shame, because I don't want to knock the teams, because Carbide is a brilliant machine. It's an absolutely fantastic machine, and it deserves all the success it has. And it's the best thing in Robot Wars. But there's this very negative view that some people have on it, including myself, unfortunately. A way to think, oh, for God's sake, Carbide won again. I just think that, honestly, if I'm not caring about the Heat final, then was this really a good episode? Because the best part of any film or any TV show at all is the ending, because it's the last thing you remember. And after such brilliant melees, after Gabriel and Carbide, after seeing Eruption get all the flips out of the arena, seeing the Big Nipper and Aftershock moment, seeing Big Nipper hitting Smash out of the arena, and the driving match between Big Nipper and Eruption, there were some fantastic moments here, and then it all just kind of fell when it got to this Heat final, and it left me with a sort of bad taste in my mouth, and I think it's kind of altered my view on this Heat, because if I'm not caring about the Heat final, then why should I care about the Heat at all?
Yeah, I think it's a very sour note to end on. Honestly, I would have much rather enjoyed if the final 2 fights were reversed, because imagine if Big Nipper versus Aftershock was our Heat final. I mean, in any other Heat that probably would be, but yeah, just imagine that was our Heat final. That'd be brilliant. But yeah, but unfortunately here we have this, which, yeah, it really wasn't a good Heat final, and it was very much sort of just shades of the very quick Heat finals from the last couple series. But yeah, not a really good note to end this episode on. It still had some great moments, but not really a good one to end on. But thankfully, our next Heat does end a lot better. We still have a long way to get there, but at least we have some solace in knowing that the Heat final for Heat C was brilliant. It wasn't, I would say, on par with Heat A, but let's be real here, I'm not sure what could top that, but as far as the Heat final goes, this was a great one, and yeah, overall, I would say this Heat C was a more consistent episode, and so let's go ahead and get cracking into it, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, we need to say that this Heat has a sort of strange thing, because Heat B has so many big named robots. They kind of shoved it all into one Heat, which means we kind of get Heats with some names in them, but a lot of new machines as well. And sometimes this can be a great thing. Here we get the legendary Terahertz by John Reed, and we also get Rapid coming back from Series 9 after its withdrawal. So there's some big things going on here. Apex, we've got the Danby boys that are back with their spinning machine, which went out very, very quickly in Heat D. And then we've got 3 new robots in the form of Vulture, Bucky, and Track-tion. And these machines are pretty damn cool. I mean, when you consider new machines, especially when you look at Series 9, there are a lot of cumbersome machines which died in about 3 seconds. And here, we don't get that. We get robots which actually work. And I don't know if that's because this heat didn't really have anything that could get a KO blow, because, let's be real, the only thing that could have done that killed itself. But we'll get to that in a second. First of all, let's just talk about all the machines. Especially Bucky.
Oh my word. This team is phenomenal in every way. So, Bucky is a brand new robot from a brand new team. Not really much is known about them prior. I know that concurrently they're doing King of the Bots with a machine called Griffin. And one thing that they have with this thing is that, well, for one, the robot looks insane. It's a very fantastic looking machine. It's supposed to look like after a set of chatter teeth. And it's not the most, I guess, effective design, but you know what? They did something unique, and it actually worked in a way. I mean, it definitely did a pretty solid job, all things considered. It may need some revitalization, but overall, the design definitely has a lot of potential. Something that does not need revitalization, however, is the mascot. Oh my word, what a beautiful touch.
The mascot makes Bucky so much more than it was. Bucky, as a robot, is great. The team, good spirits. But it's the mascot which everyone remembers, because, hell, when have we ever seen a mascot, like a proper mascot in Robot Wars? I think the only other one I can think of is maybe the Grim Reaper in Series 7, the Grim Reaper that stood by the judge's desk, but we never really saw it very much. It just kind of stood there. But Bucky, the mascot, is great, and I love the fact that Dara became kind of like friends with it, and I thought that was lovely. I really enjoyed those moments. Dara, when he gets given like full control over what he can do and what he can say, he can come up with some brilliant stuff. And I particularly love the moment of when Tom, the captain of Bucky the robot, says about his machine, and Dara mentions, but what about that guy, and points over, and we don't know who he's pointing at. And then Tom says, oh, him, that's Mo, and starts talking about Mo, who's another member of the team. The camera pans to Mo, and then pans back to Dara, and he goes, no, that guy. And that's the first time we see the Bucky mascot. And it was just such a funny moment. It's one of those interviewing parts which was on the same sort of level to me as the Donald Thump stuff. It was just perfect back and forth, comfortable team on the camera, and they made some gold right there.
I want to see a banter off between James Davies and Tom Lloyd to see who can just come up with the best banter, because both of them, as far as new teams go, are just phenomenal characters. But yeah, Bucky just, oh my word, what a great team. I mean, even if the robot itself wasn't the most effective, it was memorable, and it also, give it credit where credit's due, it's withstood. It well withstood. I mean, yeah, it has some design flaws, but it's a brand new robot from a brand new team. They gotta have some, a bit of a learning curve there. But overall, though, they did a relatively solid job.
Yeah, but speaking of design flaws, let's talk about Rapid, because we last saw them in Series 9, and they had to drop out after getting a severe wrecking from Aftershock, and realising that maybe being overly engineered isn't a good thing. But honestly, Rapid in Series 10, wow. I was looking forward to seeing this machine back. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's just the love for flippers that I have, and personally, I'm really liking the flippers they have chosen for Series 10. I am very much looking forward to seeing Iron Ore next week. Definitely some good choices here. All we need is Ripper, but we're not going to get Ripper, which still upsets me. But I digress. Rapid is looking beautiful. Like, what happened? We had this black wedge thing, and now we've got this fancy glass on the side, and we've got these golden sides to it, and oh man, Rapid looks so cool.
It is a very good design. I mean, is it the flashiest? No, but I don't know. It's nice and simplistic, and I really enjoy that. And in fact, actually, I just really enjoy the improvements they made on it. It's a great revamp, and yeah, the team have really done a good job here just revitalizing it and changing it up to make it a very effective machine. And yeah, it's good. I really do enjoy it. And now we have the final robot, which is track-tion, track-tion.
Thank you for making a point out of that. Track-tion are the school team that we have for this year, because we always get a school team, but this school team have something a little bit special about them. No, they didn't test their robot in the classroom on some cardboard and say that that is safe. No, they have Will Thomas as their teacher.
Yes, indeed. They have Will Thomas as their professor. He helped them build the robot, which actually, let's get into a little bit of a fun fact here. So, this robot was actually built by the team who built the machine known as Terminal Ferocity back in Series 3. You remember Terminal Ferocity? I mean, yeah, it lasted not super long, but still. And yeah, they basically built a few versions of this as sort of a test design, and one of them ended up getting sold to the is it Collingwood School?
I think it's Collingwood. I apologise if I have said that wrong, by the way. We are just trying to remember what we can.
Yeah.
I believe it is Collingwood. I think the team is Collingwood Carnage, if I'm correct.
Okay, yeah. So basically they took this and sort of took the base of it, the tracks mainly, and then added everything, including the hydraulics for the crusher and the spikes at the front and a few little things, changed it up a bit. Although, if you look closely when it's getting flipped over, it still has that yellow base plate, which I'm assuming is left over from when it was the test robot for Team Terminal Ferocity. But yeah, so a good bit of lineage in this robot, and it's a very good-looking machine overall. And the kids are actually great sports. I mean, a lot of these new school teams have been great sports. Of course, we saw it with Expulsion last year and heading into episode 5. And here they were a very good amount of kids. They took everything in good stride. They took everything like they were having a laugh and everything. They were all very good sports.
Yeah, and that's definitely good to see. You want to have teams that are a good spirit to them, because after all the stuff that happened with Cherub last series, I felt sorry for the kids because they're just kids and they are absolutely fine. Like they did very well, and there's always a sort of negative sort of the stigma that comes with child teams, but they're actually very mature, and in some ways they are more mature than some of the adult teams, because I think it's just the sort of thing is that they haven't put so much money, I think, into their robot, so it's probably not quite so, oh shit, look at about God knows how much money just sprawled out across the arena floor. But still, it's great to see these teams. We always get a school team, and last series we got Frostbite, who garnered a lot of negative attraction on the subreddit and elsewhere because of their safety testing. But it's good to see a team here who, because they're mentored by Will Thomas, I can trust that they did all their testing safely. And that's also good to know, because we don't want a repeat of what we saw with Frostbite. We really don't.
No, and thankfully, this is a very, very safe procedure team. No controversial videos or anything, mainly because you have Will Thomas, who is, of course, very professional. And yeah. So before leading this fight, you actually had a little point you wanted to make about the hazard footage, where you once again are really praising the editing that the team have done for this series.
Yeah, I mean, when they're not doing the Aftershock Bohemian Rhapsody stuff, they can actually make
Mamma mia.
Mamma mia, let me go. God damn it. But
we will do that every single time we bring that up.
But they do some fantastic editing. We saw a lot of it in Heat A, a lot of really lovely storytelling, and it really built up Behemoth as this underdog. So when we got the win, it made it even more special than it was, even if you weren't like a Robot Wars fan from ye olden times when Behemoth was actually in the original series. Even if you were a newcomer to Robot Wars, you understood the sort of impact it made because of the editing. And once again, the Robot Wars editing team have done something brilliant here. And when Jonathan Pierce is going over all the hazards in the arena, saying about how it can go in the pit, it can go in the flame pit, the flipper, yada yada yada, the choices of fight footage that are shown are very clever. You've got, for the pit, Terahertz pitting Carbide. Now, this is the only time Carbide's ever gone in the pit, and it's probably the most humiliating of all Carbide losses. And also considering Terahertz is in this heat, and Carbide is the current champion at this point, we don't know if they win Series 10, but this looks really good because you think, oh my god, that's Carbide and Terahertz. They're in this heat, and god, they've beaten Carbide. That's Terahertz is one to watch out for. So that's very clever. And we also get, for the OOTA, we get Apollo and the Swarm. So we get one of the big flippers in Robot Wars flipping out Rubber Duck or Rubber Ducker, and that looked really good. Like, it was one of the best flips we've seen, and a lot of people remember that moment from that heat, and it definitely does show the best of the Out of the Arenas in terms of spectacle. I mean, personally for me, I would say that Eruptions Out of the Arena on Aftershock is the most impressive one we've seen, but I digress. Supernova and Frostbite are chosen for the damage, and this is one that I really like, because whether you like Frostbite or not, there is no denying that it looked amazing getting torn up by Supernova, because, you know, we've got hypno-disc with Robogeddon, we had hypno-disc again with Splinter. It's always quite fun to see a robot get torn to shreds, and a very good choice for damage. One of the key moments of damage in Robot Wars, the reboot. So a really good choice. Just some great editing choices here. And again, praise to you guys. Not a lot of people may notice it, but don't worry, I do.
Which is good. It's good. You can show a little appreciation of the just the little things in it. It's the little things that make life good. And
absolutely.
And now we get into the big things, the opening melee of this episode. And this one is a very rapid dominant one. They end up OOTAing track-tion out, and then they almost got Bucky, but Bucky does one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It clamps its jaw on the wall and ends up lowering itself down to sort of save itself from getting flipped out. And then after that, Bucky ends up at least lasting towards the end. They almost get counted out, but because of that, it went to the judge's decision. And this is one of my favorite moments. It's one of the moments that made me really laugh out loud in this episode. It's where Dara is interviewing Josh and Tom, and he says, well, I think we all know who won that fight. Tom says, yeah, me. And then Dara says, okay, I think almost everybody who knows here who won. That made me laugh so hard. It's like, it's just a little line that just made me really crack up. And then also, I learned that there is actually a secret to Team Rapid success. It is not having the money to make a very well-engineered machine. It is not having an excellent driver and some great team members behind them. It is having the motherfucking Tims.
God damn it. The memes. You better have mentioned that in your rapid AMA question. Like, if you didn't mention about the Tims, like why they were wearing the Tims, I'm not impressed with you, Charlie.
Son of a bitch, I didn't. I did ask about the umbrella from Series 9.
That's good, at least. That's one of the things that we want to know. But yeah, this was a interesting fight, because obviously Rapid looked really good here, flipping out track-tion very, very quickly, and it definitely was dominant over Bucky, but Bucky did some really good driving here. It looked really impressive, and yeah, Bucky has got some big design flaws to it, which we'll get into later on in this episode. But Bucky did a great job lasting the whole 3 minutes, and I loved that moment of when you had it clamping its jaw down onto the wall. That was a really cool moment, and it's great to see the teeth actually working and doing something. This was really good. Good start to the heat.
Oh yeah. And now we get into our second melee. Let's start off with the Big Daddy, as Angela put it. Let's just let that saturate in. JP wants Matilda, and Angela Scanlon thinks John Reed is daddy.
With his big pink D.
Okay, enough of me being disgusting. I apologize.
Oh,
I apologize.
God. The last episode of this, we had the whole thing with Jonathan Pierce talking about Matilda's arse, and now this. Oh, God.
Oh, man. Yeah, so Terahertz is back. Not a whole lot improved upon from the last series, but again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Although we had a thought on something that could be done that could make Terahertz at least a little bit more improved. With Jason Marsden in Thor, he has modular axes. And we thought, what if Terahertz did something like that? Or even did some axe designs. Maybe did one of the old Kilohertz beak just for memes. And then also had a sort of Beta-esque hammer. And just mainly took the best of all the elements of John Reed's machines and was able to make them into interchangeable axe heads depending on who its opponent was.
It'd be a really good idea. I said when we were talking about this that, you know, you could have the sort of nostalgia of the Kilohertz axe head. You can then have the Beta thing being put in, because we all want to see Beta in Robot Wars, but unfortunately ABC ain't allowing that. So this could be a nice loophole round that problem, is to use some parts, like design Terahertz a little bit better so it can handle a bit of a heavier hammer to it. But these are just little things which could really improve Terahertz in a big way, because like we said before, modular weapons are absolutely a thing in 2017 and they look to be used a lot more in the future. So Terahertz, if it really wants to do even better, then I really think this is a good idea. And to be honest, I would love to see Terahertz of a Kilohertz axe, just because the nostalgia there would just be so damn cool.
It would be. I think it would be a fantastic little touch. At least something that at least could improve upon Terahertz. But yeah, overall though, great design, timeless. And now we move on to a new team. This one is Vulture. And fun fact about this team, Adam, the team captain, was also the lead designer on the fantastic Robot Arena 2 Robot Wars mod that came out a couple years ago. So, Adam, if you're listening to this, thank you for that. And thank you for also giving us this beautiful new machine here, Vulture. It's a great sort of design. It's got the way I can describe it is like an axe with a spinning bar. I guess the best way I can describe it is, imagine if a machine like Scorpios or Sawblaze from ABC BattleBots had a bar spinner instead of just a disc on it. And yeah, it's a very great looking machine. One is also kind of, at least in scale, the other robots quite small. It's kind of like got that Foxic mentality where you make this sort of smaller design, but you give it this sort of really beefy armor and everything. And yeah, it's a very clean, very good looking machine.
Absolutely. Vulture's one that you and I, when we first saw it, we were immediately like fangirling over it just because it looked so beautiful. I mean, I'm always a fan of an innovative design, and Vulture certainly made one in that sort of strange axe and spinner. And yeah, when we get into the fights, I have to say that it isn't quite as good as we were hoping for, and I think with a bit more power and a bit more speed, it could be damn effective. But this is a first time build, and that's going to be expected. And it just looks great. I mean, Dara makes a good point out of it. It may be a little bit condescending in the way he does it, but he says it's crazy that these people who have no experience in robot building can be here and they can have this robot and think they can do anything. But they've made a really beautiful looking machine. And while I wasn't particularly keen on Dara's interview, I must say that I agree with him. It's a really beautiful machine, and Team Immersion did a great job with it.
Yeah. Also, this team, sort of newcomers as far as the fray of heavyweights go, but they do have quite a lot of extensive experience with the featherweights, which is what they really took to heart here as far as their design aesthetic.
Yeah, definitely. I know that Adam and Jarvis, I know that they have done a lot of featherweight building, but I'm more referring in the way to how Dara put it, because Dara treated them like they were completely new time builders. I know that it was their first heavyweight, or it was one of their first heavyweights, but they were treated as rookies, and I'm never keen on when Roboteers are treated like rookies, because you've got to treat every team in a positive manner, because you've got to encourage them to come back. Like, you know, you may have your staples in Carbide, Apollo, Eruption, but there are the other teams as well, and those teams can become something huge.
Yeah, exactly. It's the new guys, it's the little guys and gals who really make this show, because, I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Vulture, great design. Unfortunately, in this episode, it didn't pan out, I think, the way that we expected, but still, I mean, give them props to do. They made a fantastic, new, innovative design. And now we get onto our last robot, the deadliest of deadly boys. Of course, we are talking about Apex, with its new spinner that looks like a mixture of a guitar and a warhammer. Something I'm not quite sure specifically what. I don't play Warhammer. I know, I'm a scrub. But it was something involved with Warhammer, as Craig put it.
I can explain that. I can explain it if you really want me to.
Okay, yeah, please.
Basically, what the disc is designed on, from what I understand, is a Space Marine from Warhammer 40k. And whilst I'm not big on Warhammer either, I have done some D&D campaigns that are part of Warhammer. They have the sort of story of Warhammer in them. Basically, Space Marine is a huge bloke. They're very scary, like 8 foot tall, and they are incredibly powerful. Like, they're super, super OP. They've got all the best weapons, and you don't fuck with a Space Marine. And because in Robot Wars we are all such beautiful nerds, Craig decided that he had to design a disc off the shape of a Space Marine, and I approve of that. I think that's pretty damn cool.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, we're all like, you know, techie nerds here. I mean, so it kind of it ties in quite nicely. Now I want to play Dungeons and Dragons with Team Danby, and so Apex returned. They're now back in blue, and with this new bar, they also have their previous longer bar. But yeah, great to see them back. And now we get into the melee, which unfortunately for Apex does not go well for them. What was cut from the fight is actually that they were end up shoved into the arena. And I believe their bar, they had the Warhammer bar for this opening melee. I believe it broke off a panel of the arena, and so they had to weld that back on. God bless you, Callum. You were not paid enough for your job. And yeah, so that's why it looked like it died relatively quickly against Terahertz, because it was already pretty well damaged from that initial shove. And then Terahertz ends up raining down blows on Vulture. And then, yeah, basically, much like with Rapid, this is a Terahertz dominant fight. And Terahertz just ends up completely owning this fight and ends up winning very comfortably.
Yeah. Now, this is something I want to make a point out of, is that every single Melee winner so far has made it to the Heat final, and it's no exception here. And I think from this very early stage, it's immediately obvious Rapid and Terahertz is the Heat final. We were saying it the whole time in our predictions that we were making, that Rapid and Terahertz was going to be the Heat final, and yep, we weren't wrong. But it was still a good fight. It's good to see Terahertz proving that it's a damn good machine, and that even if something is old, it doesn't mean that it's dead. If you believe in an idea, you can keep it going, you can keep improving it, and you can keep it modern. We saw it with Behemoth in Heat A, and now we're seeing it with Terahertz. Terahertz is still a force to be reckoned with. And John Reed, I mean, we saw him in these pictures, which I marked out over this. There were pictures of Kilohertz in Robot Wars. They actually acknowledged Kilohertz, they acknowledged Terahertz as well later on, the original Terahertz from Series 5 and 6. They actually showed photos of it, and John Reed mentioned that he got into Robot Wars because he discovered American Robot Wars, and this was really cool little bit of history. But John Reed, much like with Behemoth in Heat A, there was a lot of storytelling here about Terahertz and John Reed being this legend, and he definitely proved that in this fight. Both John and Nick did such a good job here. Kudos to Terahertz.
Very well deserved from John Reed. And before we get into the redemption round, we actually have Angela interviewing Lucy Rogers about the Fog of War, and let's just all come into an agreement here. Like, everybody agrees, the Fog of War is not a good idea. It's probably one of the worst things of Series 10. I mean, next to the voice going, the Fog of War, which pretty much is like a cheese grater on my ears every time I hear it, but yeah, I think everybody is not really big on the Fog of War because, I mean, the fans can't see, the Roboteers can't see, the House Roboteers can't see, the judges can't see, Dara and Angela can't see, so really, it just throws everything off. Stephen McCullough actually had a great idea in his review of this Heat, where instead of just filling the arena with fog, what you do is you have it sort of shoot upwards onto the driver booth, that way they're blinded, but everybody else can still see what's going on, and so you get sort of like this moment of just absolute disorientation, but the fans can still see it instead of just, everybody in this sort of 10 seconds of mystery not knowing what happens because no one can see.
Yeah, the problem is, though, is that every single hazard in the arena is kind of self-inflicted. If you drive over the flipper, there's a chance of being flipped. If you drive down the pit, that's your fault. So everything has this sort of thing that, if you're controlled, then you're going to be fine. Now, the problem with Fog of War is it's the complete opposite. Now, bearing in mind that the judges, they judge on control, damage, and aggression, there's a severe lack of control if you've got this fog happening, even if it is blowing up into the booths. No matter what, the Fog of War is just a really shoddy idea, and it's definitely done just for a spectacle. And I say a spectacle, but even then, it's just bloody fog. Like, we get it, you vape, but still, don't do it in the bloody arena.
Vape Nation!
Oh, it just frustrates me, and I don't want to get really agitated about it, but I really like the pit. The pit is one of the biggest parts of the arena, and without the pit, it's not Robot Wars. When they added the random house robot, that was great. That's a really good idea. You got to use the house robots a little bit. I don't like the fact they just go after a random opponent. I think it should be after the robot which didn't touch the button, but still, it's a good idea. Like, it works, and it means that the house robots get to do something, because we don't get to see them destroy robots at the end of the fight, obviously. But the Fog of War, what does it honestly do? I mean, Lucy, bless her, I know that she has to try and make it sound good, but she said herself, the judges can't see, so it's very hard for them to actually, mark it down and look at it and think, okay, what's going on here? I mean, Fog of War, I hope we don't see it again next series, and I'm definitely not the only one thinking that. I think this is a unanimous thing.
Yeah, it's a good idea, I guess, on paper, but in execution, it did not work out at all, but yeah. So, moving onward, we have our first Redemption Round fight. This one is between Apex and track-tion, and track-tion actually has a bit of an addition here. What they do is they remove the spikes and the crusher, and instead take one of Vulture's wedges. It's like a very thick wedge, and attach it to the hydraulic to use as their weapon. And here, I feel like they were very tentative because they didn't really know how to approach Apex. I mean, really, the thing's an absolute monster, so they kind of just let it come into its parlor. And then Apex ends up touching track-tion, and this is when all hell breaks loose. Apex goes into a dance of death, and then the bar just comes flinging off. The entire mechanism around just explodes, comes flinging off. It goes shooting in one direction. The robots go shooting in another. The bar ends up going through the inner plexiglass of the arena. Mercifully, that's about as far as it went. But yeah, and it was just a massive bang. Everybody was jumping back except Craig. He was just more like, oh shit. And then the funniest moment is that one of the kids from Team Track-tion said, I think I need to change my trousers after that. But I love how in the notes here, you put it under as Jesus titty fuck Christ that hit in all caps. Because that's the best way to describe it.
We are very expressive in the way that we do our notes. We both know that. I've seen your notes and you have seen mine, and they definitely correlate quite nicely. But this, wow, I mean, the interesting thing here is that if Apex went around a little bit further around track-tion and they cut at track-tion's tracks, they could have still won, but they went straight for the wedge, and I don't know what was wrong with their bar, but they must have had it unbalanced, because Jesus Christ, Apex went flying. They might as well have had Beelzebub appear from the arena and just scream at everyone, because that's what it was like. It was terrifying. I was sat at my laptop and I was like, bloody hell, and I wasn't there. I cannot imagine how scary that must have been live.
I think the team confirmed that the bar itself wasn't unbalanced. I think it was just the way that it was attached wasn't as secure as they wanted it to. Team Danby seemed to have an issue as far as when it comes to attaching things. Last season, it was they Craig forgot to put like some sort of bolt in or something like that.
Yeah, it was a bolt, I believe, which meant that this remake of Foxic didn't work. And then the chump drove it over the flipper. Oh,
Yeah.
Craig, I want to love you, but honestly, dude.
Yeah, and then Apex here, I guess like the parts they used just weren't up to snuff, or they weren't attached. Something just went completely wrong to have it be a full failure like that. But yeah, and then Dara, bless him, he basically treats it like it's an episode of CSI, and just goes on like it's basically a crime scene. And Craig, man, what? I really do feel for him this episode because of just how much shit he's had to go through in this show. And yeah, it's a very somber moment because, I mean, look, here's the thing. The way it's portrayed on the show can be of this sort of very, just off the cuff, very, sort of just explosive personality. But then you go on his Instagram and he has videos of him just acting like a dad in front of a baby Foxic, like talking like he's talking to a puppy. And, like, that's really what Craig Danby is. It's just, I think he's a man that's very passionate about Robot Wars. I mean, you gotta keep in mind, he's been doing this, he's been trying to get on the show since Series 2. And he's been trying to apply in basically to every series. And the only time he ever was in the old show was what? A little moment in the Extreme 1 Ant Weights, and then in the Featherweights, which didn't even last that long. I'm not quite sure if Gianto ever like made it past the starting gate. And then he finally gets on the show with his robots, and then Foxic is already fucked to hell from last rites from being in Robo games. Foxic in Series 9, he ends up missing that important bolt, and then it causes the Shreemac to fail. And then for Apex, for Chris, they mess up with the timing, so they couldn't get off the gate at the proper time, and they end up getting killed. And then here, Apex just explodes. So it's just like, really, I mean, we talk about curses, we talk about with Behemoth or Terahertz. I say the Team Danby curse is even more so just because of just how much failure they've had to go to.
It's just so sad. I mean, we also know, I'm gonna get the name wrong. I think it's TX108, which was...
No, you got it.
Is that correct?
Yeah, you got it.
Holy shit. Yeah, TX108 was against hypno-disc in the Wildcard Warriors, but we never got to see the fight because TX actually won the fight, but it wasn't exactly a fair win because hypno-disc just broke, if I believe.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is the only win, unfortunately, that Craig actually kind of has because, yeah, it won as Foxic in Series 8, but can you really say that running away and hiding is a win? And yeah, this is just, it's so sad. The Danby curse is absolutely real, and I anticipate that one day we're going to get to see hopefully Foxic, because Foxic is actually a safe machine and actually does work. I think Apex is quite ambitious. I would love to see Foxic actually prove everyone wrong and do amazingly well, because Craig can make some really good robots, and he clearly has so much passion and love for building robots, and he has really nothing to show for it, and he deserves so much more. So, Craig, just know that you are absolutely appreciated. If you do get to see this podcast at all, we really do appreciate you, and we appreciate all of the determination you've had and the willpower to keep on going, because honestly you deserve a lot better than you have, and one day I think that they're going to get their bear moth moment.
Oh yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think the brothers Danby will have their day in the sun. I hope it's soon, because they deserve it after everything they've been through. But unfortunately here, that's the end for Apex, and now we get into our next redemption round. This is Bucky versus Vulture. And here, I think this is where Bucky's biggest flaw is, because it was relatively in control of this fight, and then it ends up getting pushed into the arena flipper and ends up on its side. And unfortunately, it could not self-right from there. And yeah, Bucky ends up getting KO'd, and that's it for Bucky, which is a shame. I mean, it's much like how Donald Thump went out in the redemption round of Heat A, where that's the it for this phenomenal team. But mercifully, much like with Donald Thump, Dara ends up with a nice little win by holding the hand of the Bucky mascot, #Ducky, OTP.
#Ducky is something I want on a t-shirt. I want to have Dara holding hands with the Bucky mascot. I will wear that with pride. I loved that moment, and it really was... It's almost like a sort of bittersweet sort of moment you get at the end, but it was also very heartwarming, of where you just kind of have Dara walking hand in hand with the Bucky mascot, and it's again this sort of fun bit of editing which they sometimes have with Robot Wars, and I really enjoyed it. It makes the whole thing feel a lot more personal, and also it just gives you a little bit of a laugh. And the fight itself, there's not really too much to talk about. Vulture did a good job with the driving, but I think they got quite lucky. Bucky was definitely on top for the majority of that fight, but sadly they have a top-heavy robot and they just don't have the design there yet. I think that personally, if you just get a sort of wedge and then you just attach the clacky teeth to it, then I think you're going to get a far better machine. Kind of something like Lycan from BattleBots, but actually good. I think that that would be great to see.
Yeah, Lycan, but a bit more controlled. And I think also, it's kind of reminded me of like how Razorback lost in BattleBots, in that it got on its side. I think if they had a little bit of something to keep it to where if it landed on its side, it could have like a pivot point that helps lower it down back onto its wheels. But yeah, I mean, this is like I said, brand new team. They still got a little bit of a learning curve to go through. I think we'll see some great improvement from them later on, but for now, that's unfortunately it for Bucky. So Track-tion and Vulture survive, and then our semifinals are Track-tion versus Rapid again, and Terahertz versus Vulture again.
I don't know why they did this. I think that the reason for it could potentially be because they wanted to have this sort of story, because I know that Adam and Jarvis, apparently according to what Dara and Angela said, they are huge fans of John Reed and Terahertz. So I guess it was a sort of thing of like the fans fighting against their inspiration. So I can see why they did it, but at the same time, we saw Rapid flip out Track-tion in like no time at all in the melee, and I think we all knew that was going to happen again. And honestly, what really frustrates me is, again, storyline. I know I'm terrible for it, but Rapid is the expensive machine, constantly going on about how expensive it is. Vulture, Adam makes the point that you don't need money and experience to be able to build a robot, and that's the reason why they're there. Perfect parallels, perfect storyline, put them together, and instead we get 2 repeats of 2 matches which we've seen, and both of them were quite lackluster.
Yeah, unfortunately so. I mean, funny thing to know about Rapid though, because I know like people will mention the expense thing. If you rewatch the episode, and I think like I already told you this, but notice how the team never mentioned the price tag. It's always the show that does it. It's never the team. They never actually bring it up, which I think goes back to what you were saying earlier about the show portraying them as heels, because really, I mean, yeah, you can kind of like see it as kind of sort of overblown as far as the design goes, but I mean, really, by all accounts, there's nothing as far as the personality of Josh or the team themselves that make them seem as cocky as the way that the show makes him look. It reminds me of how the show would make Andrew Marchant look in the old series, where they almost like comes off like this sort of cocky, arrogant person, but in reality he's actually high praise of the opponents, very appreciative of the other competitors, like what Josh is here of Track-tion. He's very high praising of Track-tion. And hell, even people like who are shit talking Rapid on Twitter, Josh is liking their posts. I mean, really, if he was like, and if he really was that arrogant, he would be all snide and just, commenting about how, oh, you peasant, I have more money than you, haha. No, but he's not doing that. He's going along with it. He's having a laugh at it.
Yeah, absolutely. This thing about Robot Wars is it doesn't really garner a lot of horrible people anyway. Everyone in the community is there for a reason. And I mean, Team Rapid are doing an AMA. They've done featherweight competitions and stuff. They actually have experience. They have been part of Robot Wars. And it isn't all just Rapid. They just haven't turned up with this machine, first build. And it's like, oh, because of all of this money that we have, we can make this really good machine. And look, we have no experience at all, but we have money. But no, we don't get that. The show wants us to think that. But really, they're actually really nice people.
Yeah, I would say so. It's just, sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. And I feel like in this case with Team Rapid, it doesn't, in my opinion. I think it's not even like akin to like what they do with Ray Billings with Tombstone, where they try to portray him as a villain. It's more of, I don't know, it's just a different kind. I feel like it's one that doesn't really rub me the right way. Whereas with Ray, they try to portray him like, like this epic monster, do you want some more?
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, and actually something we actually haven't even noted yet, Rapid breaks the fight record. This is the shortest fight in Robot Wars history. It beats Gravity's record from Series 7 against Dan Tom Kia.
Yeah, I mean, we all remember when Dan Tom Kia flipped out IG-88 in the heat final in the record, I think it's 8 seconds. And then Gravity goes lol and flips out Dan Tom Kia in, I believe it is it 5.5?
Yeah, 5.5 or 5.6 or something like that.
It's damn quick. And everyone found it hilarious because, I mean, this was Dan Tom Kia who flipped out robots really quickly, and most of its fights ended with an OOTA. So this was really great to see. But now, Gravity's not the king of it anymore. After Andy Hibbard noticed that Rapid actually had a leak and was probably not going to last the full 3 minutes, they realised they had to end the fight early. And they did that. Some really good tactics. And it may not have looked good on their part, but when you just think about that, obviously they're there to win. They're there to actually succeed. It's brilliant stuff. It's really clever of them to notice it and think, right, okay, no, we need to flip him out. And by all means, it could have gone wrong for them. But because Andy Hibbard is a fantastic driver, and yeah, traction didn't really move out the way, we got a 5.4 out of the arena. And holy crap, that is quick. And the fight was over before it even began. And I don't have a problem with that because it's tactics. If you don't want to lose, you've got to do these things because otherwise your robot's just not going to work. And let's be honest, what sort of fight would that make if a robot doesn't work?
A cripple fight, which, I mean, let's face it, do we really want another Napalm versus Warhog or something akin to that? Oh. No. Okay, moving on before our brains throw up and we decide to have a mental breakdown. Vulture versus Terahertz, much the same thing. The team tried to make a sort of like, I guess I call it a pillow, which is the way that I see it similar is that Lucky and Yeti in BattleBots try doing a similar thing. They try getting like this sort of top armor to help protect against axe blows. But unfortunately here for Vulture, it doesn't work out as well, and they end up getting KO'd. In fact, so much so that they actually have to forfeit and end up relinquishing their place in the 10-card Rumble, which, okay, I gotta, this is something I can look past the last of the episode. This is one thing that really rubbed me the wrong way. Why was Bucky not reinstated to fight Traction? I mean, I get Apex wasn't because it was deader than dead, but I mean, wouldn't it make more sense to take, like, you know, a robot that could come back, like one of the two that maybe lost but could give him a chance to come back? I mean, yeah, they didn't have to fight as far as Traction did in order to get there, but still, I mean, give him a chance, see what happens, and who knows, they could surprise. But instead, Traction automatically gets into the grand final. I mean, all consolation to them, and this creates that really weird sort of universe where you have to realize that a Will Thomas-driven machine is not in the grand final, but one of students that he mentored is. Irony is a funny thing.
Yeah. But there's no mention of that ever in the episode. They never mention that Will Thomas is the tutor, which is really frustrating because what the hell? Like, why? Like, Will Thomas is on the website, so that was a bit strange. Like, they've got a photo with him with Traction, so I don't know about that. But yeah, Bucky should have been reinstated in my opinion, because if you look back to Series 8 and 9 especially, when Rapid had to withdraw, they replaced Rapid with Jellyfish. And we also saw it with, when Frostbite went out, we had Worm being reinstated. And we also had Chomp-a-Lot and of course Pulsar, which was then a grand finalist being reinstated. So these things do happen and you need to have a backup. And to be honest, we've already lost out on one match from what we had with the old structure from Series 8 and Series 9 going into Series 10. But we lost another match because of an unfortunate thing that happened with Vulture. But this should have been that moment where they thought, okay, Bucky, they haven't gone yet, bring them back, and then have Bucky versus Traction. Because regardless of how it would have ended, if Traction won or Bucky won, at least we would have got a fight out of it.
Yeah, I can understand a lot of things, but that's just one thing I just don't. I mean, unless like Bucky didn't want to fight for, or something was wrong with their robot or something like that, I can understand that. As far as that's concerned, I feel like that just all around would have been better. I mean, really, I don't see what the downside would be just getting another fight out of it. I mean, both of the robots were still in good condition. They really hadn't taken much as far as the way of damage goes, certainly not as much as Apex had. And yeah, it would have been an interesting fight. I think Traction versus Bucky would have been a great fight. We could have actually seen Traction's Crusher come into action instead of kind of off to the side where it didn't really do much in the episode. We could see Bucky do more of its teeth chomping. I think to me, that's probably my least favorite thing in this entire episode is the fact that we were denied this fight. Like we didn't see that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, one thing which is quite strange when you think about it is the fact that Traction make it into the 10-bot Rumble, being in the arena for about a minute, and yeah, it's not necessarily their fault. I mean, I kind of compared this to 101, where they were a robot which didn't really do very much, but they just outlived their opponents because they were just well made and their opponents kind of weren't. And that's not an insult to these, because this is a little bit different to that. But Vulture has to withdraw. We had Apex killing itself, and then Traction getting flipped out of the arena twice by Rapid. They haven't really done very much in the heat, and it's not necessarily their fault, but it's unfortunate because I'm a fan of a track design, and I like the sort of suicidal tendencies look. So I wanted to see this go into play. It's kind of a control bot in a way with the two things working, kind of like a sort of bite force thing. So I would have really liked to have seen something being done here, but unfortunately we're just getting put straight through into the 10-bot Rumble, and we're denied a fight, which just baffles me, especially because we bloody love Bucky. The more Bucky, the better.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, that was not really a good note, but thankfully, unlike the Heat B, where we have a great 10-bot fight and then a poor Heat final, our Heat final, Terahertz versus Rapid, a phenomenal Heat final. It's a very back and forth one. Rapid really used the arena hazards to their advantage, which again brings back my allusion to Tornado, where Tornado would use the CPZs. I'm going to say Z because that's how it's called. I know America we say Z, but I'm going to call them Z.
Thank you. I heard Mr. Psycho say CPZ, and I kind of shook a little bit.
No. I don't pronounce behemoth like Behemoth because I have to force myself to, but I'll say CPZ, at least it's some consolation.
Well, it is Behemoth, but you know, Craig Charles and the team have always said Behemoth, so just kind of used to it. They've always said Behemoth.
But yeah, here Behemoth will be joined by Rapid as they won the heat. Terahertz did a good show, I think. It was especially considering like this is their first time in the heat final since Series 6, and their second time in the heat final ever. But yeah, they did a pretty good job. Unfortunately, Rapid just had the advantage. They were much lower, much smaller. In fact, honestly, I feel like, I know I mentioned this about Vulture earlier, but I think this is something else I noticed. Terahertz is a big robot. Like, I know like these robots are huge by default, but Terahertz is a monster.
Absolutely bloody huge. It's terrifying. Terahertz. Imagine having an axe swing down on you like that. I mean, geez, Terahertz. Just such a good robot. I love Terahertz, and it really doesn't actually have that much to it. Like, it doesn't have a lot of personality. It's quite a bland sort of design, but I think it's just the way that John drives it and just how huge and intimidating it looks really makes it special.
It's also John himself. Like, John and Nick, I know Nick doesn't really, do much as far as like talking goes, but just that dynamic duo of them.
Oh, they're
with
brilliant.
John with his person. Yeah. And John's like has such a great personality to him, so I think that really makes up for it. But yeah, a very good heat final, one that really showed a lot of control. And yeah, and Rapid ends up winning, redeeming itself from Series 9. And then John Reed breaks the internet by referencing all of the getting in some good hits, because the only way that he could have made that even more is if he referenced like his big, like if he mentioned the big pink D.
Good God.
I'm pretty sure the entire internet would just melt. But yeah, John references making those good hits in, and so he joins the 10-bot Rumble. So as of now, we have Behemoth, Carbide, and Rapid in our grand final. And then in the 10 bot, we have, make sure I count them down right, Sabretooth, Apollo, Big Nipper, Eruption, Track-tion, and Terahertz. Holy crap.
Yeah, it's a good 10 bot, and I must say, the heat final, wow, what a heat final it was. Really good driving by the teams. Rapid on their AMA said that they designed Rapid to be a 4-wheel drive flipper, so they wanted to have something with the sort of power of, interestingly, as you said, Tornado, but also with a flipper akin to something that you see on the live circuit with something like Eruption or Ripper. And they absolutely achieved that. I loved the moment of Rapid getting Terahertz and just running it across the arena and doing the flip and just Terahertz flying into the wall at God knows what sort of speed. Just Rapid just looked beastly here. Like, I'm a big fan of just those robots which have the sheer brute force and just kind of ram a robot around. But Rapid, it's amazing to see a flipper which doesn't actually flip very much, unlike Apollo which flips a hell amount. Instead, we have a robot here which flips rarely unless it can get it over the arena at walls. And other than that, it just rams them about a bit and does it really damn well. I am really looking forward to Rapid being in the grand final, because we can see against Carbide, which they said they really wanted to do, and I can't wait to see that. I want to see how it withstands to a spinner, because we saw it die to Aftershock. But this is a new and improved Rapid, and it looks great, and it performed great, and it definitely deserves its place in the grand final. Ignore all of the hate that there is for Rapid, because they absolutely deserve the spot that they got. Terahertz did a really good job, and they could have easily got that grand final spot as well. But kudos to Team Rapid and their machine. They did such a good job, and they honestly saved this heat for me. This heat final was the best thing to come out of the heat and really brought it up, in my opinion, because, like I said, you care about the ending product, and unfortunately with Heat B, we had that sort of drop. But with Heat C, it ends on a good note, it puts you in a good mood, and you think, that was good, I enjoyed that. Some of it was a bit meh, but the ending was great, and that's all that matters. Maybe that's just how I think, but there you go. But we are definitely getting on here with this recording, so I think it's time to wrap things up. You can go check out Heat B and C on BBC iPlayer right now, unless you're a filthy American like Charlie. And
Fuck off.
But yeah, we hope you enjoyed this podcast. We had a really good fun recording it, and I'm going to have loads of fun editing it, I am sure. But we'll be back again next week for Heat D, where we get to see all these wonderful robots battling out in the arena once more. But until then, I've been Harry.
And I've been Charlie.
And you've been watching Good Robottal. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
See ya.